Got a phone?
I have to check the schedule over, make sure everyone knows where they need to be and stuff like that. Okay, so we are up to the Heilige Mishnah on Daf Pei Hey Amar Aleph. Today is the third day of Chalamoid. Hayoim Arba Yom Loimer. The day before the destruction of Iran. Yeah. And also in Israel. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Ein Meviin mi Beis Hasavolim. You're not allowed to bring wheat, loamy basis volume, from basis volume. Basis volume is a field that needs to have a lot of fertilizer. What's wrong with a field that needs a lot of fertilizer? Rashi says on top, the top Rashi says because it's sadat shricha lezevel. If a field needs too much fertilizer, vaystechois is a schwache field, and it's not going to produce the best of stuff. But Rashi at the bottom says the reason why it's not nice is because, first of all, because fertilizer will ruin a little bit the taste of the pears. So even if it does grow well, it's going to have a bad smell to it, a bad taste to it. Not from fields that aren't properly irrigated, that needs to be irrigated. And not from a field that has trees growing in it. Why? Because Rashi says, because they create a lot of shade, and the wheat will be best if it's subject to a lot of sunshine. Oh, so it sucks too much nourishment. It sucks nourishment, okay? Vim heavy. But if you took from those places kosher, it will all be kosher anyway. Kate said, so what's the lechatchila way to cultivate a field so that it should produce the best grain? What you do is nara shana. Nara means you, right after you do a harvest, long before you're going to plant, you plow the field to destroy and grind up all of the roots from the last crop. That probably helps to nourish the field itself. That's what you do the first year. The next year you plant it. Now, let's just put these things into perspective. Normally, you're going to do the harvest, let's say Sukkot time, or let's say you do the harvest Pesach time. Right after the harvest, you would then plow. The replanting comes much later. Let's say you're talking about summer wheat. If you're going to, or let's say you're talking about winter wheat, if you're going to be harvesting before Pesach, right? So then you're right after Pesach, you'll do the nor, you'll do the plowing, but you're not going to replant again until after Sukkot. So there's really two plowings. One plow is to remove and grind up the old, one's for the new. So let's look at the Mishnah and see what it's saying over here. It's mashma that the first year you do the first plow right after the last crop was removed and nothing else. You don't plant that year. You leave it fallow. In the second year, so that it's mashma you don't do plowing in the beginning of the year. You only plow right before you're putting the seeds in the ground. That's the pashtus. The Gemara is going to want to know, maybe the second year you also do the first plow. And that's going to be a discussion in the Gemara. Now, when do you plant it? 70 days before Pesach. So let's think about this. Pesach is halfway through Nisan, so halfway through Adar, halfway through Shavat. Halfway through Shavat is when you're going to plant it. Now, there's a long Tosfos that discusses, it seems like, according to all the Shittas, that's way too late for the winter wheat. So Tosfos says, in fact, you're right. For wheat, it would be too late. But we're talking about, for the Omer, we're talking about barley. And barley grows faster, and that can be planted in mid-Shvat. And the yield of... Yes, there was Rabbi Yosy. Yeah, but I should have said good things about Rabbi Yosy. I mean, I didn't say anything bad about him, but Rabbi Yosy, people don't realize that the only reason why we have Orthodox Jewry that survived in America today is only because of Rabbi Yosy. But there was one pivotal thing, one pivotal move that he made that saved orthodoxy. That was the Rabbanim in America. There was pressure for them to join panels that was comprised of Orthodox rabbis and non-Orthodox rabbis. And the Haredi world made a cherem. You can't sit on a panel with a conservative. But the modern Orthodox world, the young Israel world, which was the mainstay of Judaism in America, that was headed by Rabbi Yosy Ber. And they followed what he said. And this question went to Rabbi Yosy Ber. And his answer determined the future of Yiddishkeit. And his answer was, it's a famous letter. He wrote a scathing attack on conservative and reform Jewry. And he absolutely reconfirmed you're not allowed to sit on a panel with conservative or reform Jewry. And he drew that thick red line in the sand that protected Yiddishkeit in America. After he wrote that letter, they very much wanted him to be part of the Aguda, but he didn't want. That's why they sort of had to sideline him, because if you're not with us, then, we don't want a competing body. We don't want a Deer Shoe. We don't want a Mechon Daf Yomi. We want to be the exclusive. Did I just say that, or was I just thinking that? Was it? We'll figure it out. You'll like the Hantake Daf. It's a very Goltziana Daf. The theme of today's Daf is those who flaunt it don't have it, and those who have it don't flaunt it. Okay, so let's go more weiter. What do you think? So he held up Yiddishkeit. So early.
Yeah.
Wow. On which products?
I think that's my daughter was one. She
No.
backward.
Wow.
Third, brisket matzahs went for $120 a pound.
Wow. Unbelievable.
I didn't go away. I didn't care.
Okay. Zog to Gemara. You'll get the greatest yield of flour out of these grains. Ketzat, how do you check to make sure the flour is good? Boydek HaGizbar, how does the Gizbar check it? Machnis Yadai L'Soichan. He sticks his hands and he takes out a handful of flour. Olaboy Avak Psula. If it's dust, because if you remember, we had the thick filters and the thin filters when they were sifting. The dust, the finest of the flour, is not good for the mincha or for the mincha. It has to be a flour, not a dust. So if it was too much very fine powder, that would be possible. Until they sifted it again to separate the dust from the flour kernels, which is what they were trying to get. The imisliya anu alacha. If the grain, or is it if the flour? We'll see what we're talking about. It means if the grain became wormy, then it's possible. So there's a discussion about it. Let's see what the two Rashi say. The top Rashi doesn't comment on it. Rashi Ksaviad says Rashi Ksaviad doesn't say either. Okay, weiter. Zog to Gemara. Ketzat hu oise. What exactly do you do? Nora, I'm not sure if it's Nira and Nora. Nora Shana Rishona. You plow it right after the harvest in the first year. That's what our Mishnah says. So the Gemara wants to get clarity and understanding what the process is. Iboilu. Hechi Kamer. Do we say Nora Shana Rishona? Ushnia Nora Vizayra. So on the second year there'll be two plows. One plow at the beginning of the season or the end of the last harvest, and one right before the new planting to be able to plant your seeds in the furrows. Oidilma Nora Shana Rishona, Ushni Zayr Belaynar. The second year nothing was planted there, so you don't even bother doing the first plowing, you only do the second plow. Tashma. The Tanya, Omer Yosy, Av Chiti Karzim Ukfar Achim. The wheat from these two villages are also of superior quality. If they would have been near Yerushalayim, then they would have brought from them. Now the question is, why do we say if they would be near Yerushalayim, we'd have brought from them? So there's two pshatim in Rashi. There's one pshat is because it's closer, and you're supposed to bring from close, which is the next line. However, there's another pshat in the Rashi that says if they were near, if they were near Yerushalayim, then they would have the mila of being bahar, where they get bathed in sunlight, and they would have had that extra mila. Okay, so now the Shalim people pashas is the fields in the south. And that is because in the winter the sun goes across the south horizon, so you'll always be based in the south. Tosfos says it doesn't make a difference where physically the field is located, whether it's the north or south. The most important thing is that it's on the south slope of a mountain. So, like people's solar panels, they slope them so that they should absorb the southern sun. Menun rois means they had this extra plowing done at the end of each season. Lekach. Shebehen chamas oreches, because on these fields they're bathed constantly in the sun. Umehen chamas shekas, meaning in the winter where we have a short day, the sun rises in the southeast and sets in the southwest. But as we move towards the summer months and we have longer days, then the sun rises in the northeast and travels down the eastern horizon, goes around the southern horizon, and goes up the western horizon and sets in the north. Now, it's not the sun traveling, it's our positioning. But al kolponim, we're exposed to sunlight longer, but we want to make sure that that entire south exposure is right there in the sun, and the crops will be bathed in sun. Remember, the purpose of what we just quoted is to teach us about how the fallow and the plowings are done. So now we're going to get into the focus of what we're looking for. Nora Shana Rishona, Ushnia, and the second year, Chayresh Vishoina. You plow and you plow again, V'zayir Katan Pesach. Shivim Yoim, Kadesh De Smucha Lachama. So what do you see from here clearly? You see from here clearly that the second year there's two sets of plowing. It's Chayresh Vishoina. Zog to Gemara weiter, V'yaysa Kana Zeres. You wait until the stalk is thick like a zeres. That's how long you let it grow. Vishiboila zeresayim, and the shadboilas, which is the part of the stalk that has the kernels growing on it, should be very thick. That's how long you leave it there to grow and to mature. Then v'koitzer, then you could cut it down. Then ma'amer, you bundle it. V'dash, you'll thresh it. V'zoyra, you'll winnow it. Ubayr, you'll do the selection to get rid of the psoilus. V'toichin, and you'll grind. Umaraked, and you will sift. Umevietz el gizbar, you'll bring it to the gizbar. The gizbar tests the quality. The gizbar machnis yadai l'soicha. He sticks his hands into it. Im also ba'avak, if there's dust in there, which is not the high-grade flour we're looking for, Armila, he tells his customer, Chazar v'napa oisoi shnia, you need to sift it again. Mishur Reb Nasan Amru, there was a different method of how they selected it, and I don't understand how this works. Gizbar sach yadoi shemen, the Gizbar would rub his hands with oil, umachnas l'soicha ad shemalach al avka. It almost sounds like if his arm is smeared with oil, it gets sticky. So by sticking it into the flour, only the dust will stick to it, and it'll pull out the psoilus. So instead of telling you fix it, he fixed it himself. But katani mias, in this long brisa that gave us a lot of detail, there's a tidbit of information that we need to focus on. Chayresh v'shayna. So right off the bat, it says that there's two charishas the second year. Zog to Gemara, you can't ask me, you can't bring right for the brisa, because clearly the Mishnah is not like that. So you're going to tell me that it's a machlokes? Brisa katani shayna. Zog to Gemara haloi kasha. It's not a stira. It's kan ba'avuda, kan b'she'in avuda. Did you plant the first year? Maybe the brisa is speaking, well, you planted the first year after the charisha, and therefore you need to be chayrish again. And the Mishnah that doesn't mention chayrish for shayna is when you didn't plant the first year. Let's have a look at Rashi. Haloi kasha. Mastizin the katani nourish shani rishoina. Veloi katani vishoina. It doesn't say you make a second plow. Hainu shekvar hoisa avuda shana rishoina. So it's exactly the opposite of what I just said. It's speaking where they already plowed it the first year. Since it was already plowed the first year, then it's already prepared, so he doesn't need two plowing the second year. In the second year, it's because it wasn't worked before the first year. So for this Rashi could be a little bit confusing. We're only talking beginning the Shana Rishona. What happened before you even came? If before you even started this cycle of the first year and the second year, it was the field was worked, meaning they planted and they harvested, so therefore this is an active field, there you wouldn't need two plowings the next year. But if before you started it was not worked, it wasn't plowed, it wasn't serviced, so then you need two plowings the second year. So when does the Brisa say you need a second plowing? That if the field was like abandoned before you got to it, it needs the extra plowing. Our Mishnah is speaking words avuda, so therefore our shaila remains: does it require the second plowing or not? If we look at the Ksaviyad Rashi, bavuda shenora achas b'shana rishona, you had the one plowing the first year. Brisa. To me, this sounds like Rashi and Ksaviyad and the Rashi on top are saying two different things. Because Rashi upstairs says, Koidim Shana Rishona. You look at, was this field an abandoned field or was it a process field before the first year? If it was an active field, then you need then you don't need to plow it twice the second year because the field, I guess, is the soil is already used, it's prepared. But Rashi and Ksaviyad says no. You look directly at the first year. If the first year you just made one plowing, you left it fallow, then the second year you only need one plowing before the planting. But otherwise, if you actually planted the first year, then you need to plow twice the second year. That's what. From the way I'm reading the word, it seems that Rashi and Ksaviyad is talking about was it avuda year one, and the regular Rashi is talking about whether it was avuda year zero. Okay, zog to Gemara weiter. At the end of the day, my havalo. So, what is the answer to our shaila? In a case where it was not avuda, like our so I'm looking at the Rashi and Ksaviyad. If Shanor Achas B'Shana Rishona, Rashi B'Sheina V'Shloi Nor Shana Rishona. So the Mishnah speaking where you only had one plowing the first year, what would be the second year? Do you need two or not? Toshma. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Nir Chatcha V'Zarei Chatcha. You know what you're really supposed to do? Let's look at the Rashi Ksaviyad to see how you prepare it. Tashma the Loinora Ela B'Shana Rishona. You only had the early plowing in the first year, not in the second year. Why? Because it says Ner Chatcha. Chatcha the Shana Rishona Charsha Kula V'Zayreya Chatcha. So the way it would work is, in the first year, they would plow the whole field, but they would only plant half the field. V'Zayreya Chatcha. Umaniach Chatcha Nir. And the other half would remain fallow. V'chein B'Shana Shniya. In the second year, they did the other half. And they only plant the half that was not planted last year. You leave empty. So every year you plowed the side, you processed the side, you planted the side that wasn't used the year before. Each part of the field was only used once every 2 years, which allowed it to recoup its strength. This proves to us who poshut the inor alapal machas. You only have to do one plowing when you are not planting there. That's why they didn't plant the whole field. Lizroy Karkasem Shana Achar Shana. Why? Machishim es asadosh. It'll deplete it of nourishment. Lekach zayra lechatzoyim, and that causes umar ben peres b'chol shana. That increases the yield. So let's see inside. Tashma detanya near chetcha v'zarei chetcha, near chetcha v'zarei chetcha. Clearly, there's never two plowing, because if you did near and you didn't plant that year, you're not plowing again to prepare it for the seeds. You're only plowing it again to prepare it for the seeds if you're actually planting there, which clarifies our Mishnah. We also see how they did it. They would plant on different parts of the field, which would constantly allow a field to rejuvenate. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ein mevin es ha'omer ela min hasodes hamudrama sheberetz Yisrael, the southern facing fields, sheben chamas harachas, though they're bathed in sun, from sunrise umehen chamas shakas until sunset. Tanya namhochi abashol omer hayaba mi bigas beis mikla, and it was approximately kabas gimel son hoisa. And if you remember, we said that you started off with 3 soyin of grain, and from that you were able to get the revision of flour that you were looking for. So they had a field that produced just that right amount of grain. It was very high grade grain, so that they were able to yield from it the amount of flour that they need. It happens to be it had all the features that the Mishnah Brisa tells us it has to have. And they planted it in this same fashion. Beautiful. Rav Chalakia Bar Tuvi, who was no longer in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, he was much later, so he definitely wasn't planning and preparing and growing for the Beis Hamikdash, but he had a business, and he wanted to get paid the most for his product. He wanted to produce a superior product, so he did the same thing. He had a little piece of land that he lived off, near planting in this fashion half and half at a time, it doubled his yield, and it also created the best grade tfuah, and therefore he sold his wheat for smida, which is the highest grade of flour that was bought by the very wealthy people. It was a luxury item, and that's why he did so well, because he was able to get the maximum yield and the highest quality yield by following this same process that they used to create the omer. Tanu Rabbanan. Soiles sheheslia ruba. So you said that even though the Mishnah is talking about chitin, you said that the Rashi teaches us soiles as flour because of this brisa. Soiles sheheslia ruba. Not only the chitin, but even if the flour became roiv wormy, psula. The chitin sheheslia ruba. So there's 2 different things. If the chitin was ruban, psulais. So boy, Rabbi Yirmiyah, what does it mean roiv of the chitin or sliu? Does it mean roiv chita? That means the roiv of each kernel became spoiled, which means you have to throw it all out. Maybe there are certain chitin that you could separate out that are just fine. But roiv of the saw, maybe even have to be machmer there, zok to Gemara take. Boy Rabba, hikdish, what if you were makdish then? Now you know, the halach is if you're makdish for a carbon, an animal that has a mum, you get malchus, it's a lav. So would this apply to non-karbanos as well? If you're makdish chita or soilus that shouldn't be brought, is that like being makdish a behema that has a mum? Maru sheyil kalein, do you get patch mishum balmum? Do you say kivin the puzzle kibalmum dami? Idilma ein balmum el behema zok Gemara take. The Gemara is going to ask 2 identical such shilas. Tosfos tells us on why we cleared the same shaila 3 times. So Tosfos says maybe there's a slight strichas. So now we discussed it by the soilas. Now we have another shaila. Tanasam kol eitzinim saboy toilas, wormy wood possible like mizbech. You can't use it for the mizbech. If it's moist wood, because if you try taking out the worm, the whole wood's going to get mushy and fall apart on you. But if it's hard, dry wood, you could extract the worm from the wood. Because you can use the wood. So boy Rava, so Tosfos tells us, why is this not exactly the same shaila as before? Right, keeping the puzzle. So Tosfos says,
It's possible. If it's dry wood, you take the wood's still good.
the shaila is on lacha. Right, that and we're talking about on the wood that's possible, on lacha. So Tosfos says, Shema yeshum trichusa. Maybe there is some chiddush in wood over grain. Maybe there's some trichus of why the Gemara is asking the same shaila on all these different things. They're all the same in the fact that they're not behemoths.
The whole thing's possible. Sometimes these things separate some from them.
Are you talking about wood?
Or the cellulose.
No, but it says once roiv has worms, even if you could separate, the Gemara says you can't use it. That was the Gemara shaila. Is it roiv chita or is it roiv with the whole kav? So that you can separate the good part. But once roiv, if it's called wormy, you'll throw it all out. Maybe you could suggest the boy the eitzim aliba the Rebbe leilba kamitrabo the eitzim carbon garmahu v'shayach ben loisa krifu. There's something called a carbon eitzim. According to Rebbe, you can actually bring an eitzim as a carbon, and when you bring eitzim for a carbon, you have to bring eitzim to burn the eitzim, right? So maybe that's mamish a carbon. That's why the Gemara held even if by the chitin you would have come malchus, maybe by eitzim you would come malchus. Zok the Gemara take it. Zok the heilige mishtavach Takua. The city of Tekoa, Alpha Lashemen, that's where the grade A oil came from. Abashol Omer Shniala Regev be'Evar HaYarden. In Evar Yarden, there was a city called Regev, and they made the second best oil. Kol HaRatzos HaYuksheres, really you can get it from anywhere, Elamikan Hoyu Mavian. Ein Mavian, Loi Bebeis HaZavolim, similar to what we said by Chitin, for two reasons, either because it's a poor quality field, or because the Zevel itself does something to it that takes away from its prime. Again, either because if it needs irrigation, vice versa, it's not ideal. And if they planted other plants in between the trees, that sucks nourishment away from the trees, so the trees won't be as high grade, and therefore the oil won't be as good. But the meviu kosher. But Einmavin anaf kitan, and that's not fully grown. It's funny because the Rashi on top says, wait for the Gemara. Rashi on the bottom says it's not fully grown, but the Gemara is going to explain it. Not fully developed olives. V'mevi kosher. Einmavin minagargarin shenashru b'mayim. You're not allowed to bring oil that was soaked in water. Now, again, the two pshatim Rashi. Either means if it got soaked in water, it messes it up, or if it's the type of olives that you could only extract oil from them. If you soak them in water, that's a poor grade of oil. Not from soaked, not from cooked olives. That would be possible oil. Now we have some fascinating Gemaras. Now, what happened is David HaMelech had a real problem with the son of Shalom. And there was a tremendous breakdown in their relationship. So the Navi tells us in Shmuel that there was a point in time where Yoav, who was David HaMelech's general, felt that today is a shas kosher to try to bring the two sides together. Maybe we could create shalom bein avu v'noi. And what he did was, if he would brought up shalom, he thought it would backfire. So he thought he would use a ploy. And what he decided to do was find a woman, an actress, who would make believe like she's a poor widow whose two sons got into a fight and one son murdered the other son. He literally developed a fabricated story. And one son killed the other son. There were no Eidim and Asra, so he wasn't royal Misa. And what happened was her husband's brothers felt that they had to avenge his blood and kill this guy, Al Ladam. But in the process, what's going to happen? She's not going to have a Yerush left. She's not going to have a child left. She'll lose all her children, and they'll take her husband's money because now they're the next of kin to her husband. So it would leave her completely desolate, both from a financial perspective as well as from a family perspective. And she came, and Yoav told this woman, act like you're a widow and you're poor and you're downtrodden and you're broken, and come crying to the king, help me, they want to kill my other son. And after he says, absolutely, I will not let them kill your other son, then tell him, and what about you and your son? So it would be a great opening, since you've already said that unless there's Edom and Asra, which by Avshalom also didn't exist, even though a king can kill Atzmorid b'malchus, but even Edim and Asra, you don't kill. You said that, David Melech. So she admitted my whole story was fabricated, and and I'm just trying to get a psak out of you about your own situation. So of course, David Melech said, "Did Yoav put you up to this?" And she said, "Absolutely." So he needed to find a woman who was smart enough to pull this off. So it says, "Vayishlach Yoav Tekoa." He sent someone to the city of Tekoa, where we know they had the best olives. Vayikach misham isha chachama. He took from there a very smart woman. Frag the Gemara, Maishna Tekoa. Why did Yoav have to look in that city? Rabbi Yochanan, mitoch shuragilim b'shem and zayis, chachma matzuya behen. They were smarter people, so he knew the best place to find this actress to do this ploy on David HaMelech would be a woman from this city, and it worked. Tanu Rabbanan, v'toivel b'shem ragloi, in the bracha of Asher, it says that Asher will have a lot of oil, v'toivel b'shem ragloi, zeh chelkoi shel Asher, shemoishech shemen kima'ayin. His chelek creates oil like a well. That's how much wonderful oil the chelek of Asher.
Texas.
I don't think it means that type of oil. I have a Rabbi Paksher, and he taught me that we've already perfected the mitzvah of Shabbos. Nobody has having to work on Shabbos, but many of us, and I'm talking to myself, work late Erev Shabbos, and then they come into Shabbos at the last minute, all flustered because they were busy working late. Oh, so Rabbi Paksha told me, it says, "May Asher shemeina lachmei." From Asher comes fat parnasa. So if you look at the word Asher, it's spelled with 3 letters, Aleph, Shin, Reish. Those 3 letters are the same 3 letters that precede the 3 letters that spell the word Shabbos. So my Asher, from what precedes Shabbos, shemeina lachmei. You want that fat parnasa? Stop working Erev Shabbos early. Zok to Gemara. Pamachas. Omar Pamachas, they said as follows: Pamachas nitzru lahem anshe lutkaya v'shemen. People of Lutkaya required the oil. Minulem pul mustus echod. They set up a buyer, a non-Jewish buyer, to obtain it for them. He was in the government body called acquisitions. And Amrulai, they told him, Leich vaveilanu shemen b'meir riboy, which was a huge amount. 100 riboy is 10,000. So $1 million, go buy me $1 million worth of oil. Go to the Strait of Hormuz and get us $1 million worth of oil. Halach liYerushalayim. So he went to Yerushalayim to see where's the oil. Amrulai, Leich Letzur, go to Tzur, which is in the Chelik of Asher. Halach Letzur, Amrulai Leich Legush Chalav. Halach Legush Chalav, Amrulai Leich Etzoplon, you go to the end of Yid, Lesada Allah, to that field. So he thought almost that they were playing games with him. They found this Yid, hard-working Yid. He looked more like an employee. He looked more like a laborer who was digging under the zaysim to make them good. The different shot him Isaac either means he was digging around to make trenches for irrigation, soften up the earth, or he was building fences around them. But he was a laborer. No one would have thought that he owned half of Texas. So he asked this fellow, maybe you have this amount of oil? Amrullah said, Hamtem li, wait, I'm working the fields. Wait till I finish my work, then we'll talk. So now he thought he's going to buy. And what happened? He took his tools, put them over his back, which is how a typical laborer packs up for the day. As he was walking, he was picking up rocks that were in the field and throwing them off to the side. In other words, even after his workday, he's still working. He's a real laborer, a real salt of the earth laborer. This is no big investor. This is no big millionaire. This is no big landowner, big oil producer. Amrullah tells him, Yeshlach shemen b'meir riboy. I think they're joking with me. I said I need to buy oil from a big oil man, and they sent me to some laborer. They're making fun of me. Kivin Shagil, you're right, but when he got to a city, suddenly, she brought him a beautiful jug of hot water. So clearly he was being treated like a king now. His staff came out to serve him. She served him with a gold jug of oil. V'tovo b'yodav v'raglav l'kayim hashenemer, the pasuk by Osher, which says v'toivel Hashem and Raglai. So now his wealth started becoming more apparent. It's like Jackie Mason once said, I know a Polish, I know a person who's half Polish, half Jewish. He's a janitor, but he owns the building. So that's mamish what this is. Okay, Zog to Gemara. I'm sorry, Rabbi Yankel Moshanovich. La'acher sha'achloi v'shosoi modad loi shemen b'meir riboy. After they ate and drank, he showed that I have the goods, and he sold them. What was it? 100 times 10,000. So $1 million worth of oil. Omerloi, he said, "Klumat maybe you need more. Do you think you've depleted my stocks? I have more. Omerloi, hey, I need more. The problem is, I ran out of money. Omerloi, I'm rich. I can give you credit. I'll come with you and etol domov, and I'll get money from where you get home. You'll give me more money. Now this is a little bit shver, because you would think he has way more than 100 riboy, and then was only adding 18 riboy. So there are those who learn it's 1,800 riboy. There are those who are going 1,800 riboy. That's 18 riboy, but 18 riboy added on to 100 riboy is not such a big deal. If you want to learn that he showed that he had way more, there are those who are going 1,800 riboy. Amru, they said, how is he going to carry all this oil? So this guy ended up leasing every spare truck available in the entire region to bring home this oil. Right? When they got to a city, everybody came to praise him. This man is a master of acquisitions. He was able to get for us whatever we needed. Amar lahem, he told them, don't be so excited with me. This Yid over here, he's the one who has all the oil. I still owe him. This teaches us, the guy who flaunts it and he walks around with a fancy everything, really doesn't have a penny to his name. We call that big hat, no cattle. But Misraishesh, he acts like a poor man. He's a hard worker. He's a laborer. But he is the really wealthy man. So those who have it don't flaunt it, and those who flaunt it don't have it. Ein mevin lo mibeis hazvalim. I v'tanya ein mevin anafketon ve'im heavy puzzle. So our mission says it's kosher. So because that's not even oil. That's sap. Rabbi Yosef Lekasha, look at this. Rab Chia, Rab Shimon bar Rebbe. Rab Shimon bar Rebbe was very wealthy. Rab Chia was not so wealthy. The Rab Chia Zorikle, he wouldn't eat it. It doesn't mean he threw it in the garbage. Tosha says it means he would use it to smear skin, but they wouldn't eat it. Rab Shimon bar Rebbe Mitavo Bay. He would use it to eat. He would dip his bread into it. By him it was edible. Wealthy people are frugal. They don't just throw out. They maximize the value of the resources that they have. I thought that's fascinating. Let's just learn to the Mishnah. It's coming right up anyway. Chaper in the Mishnah. Yeah. This is how they prepared the women to meet Achashverosh. My Shemin Amar of Huna Bar Chia Amar Sat Kata. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar, it's balsam oil, according to most Rishonim. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar, Shemen Zayis Lohevi Shlish. It's Shemen Zayis, but it was from premature olives. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Amar, an paknun ishem zay shleivu shlish. Lama sachana. So why do they smear it? Why do they use it to smear them? Because shemeisir as a seir, it takes away the hair. Umaadnas abasar, and it softens up the skin. Ein mevin min agagim shnosh b'mayim taner baden shem zay is kavush, soaked, shaluk, cooked, sharus, soaked, v'shal shmorim, of shmorim. So it's just the chunks of the olives that you soaked. V'shal reach rav, they don't smell good. Lo yavi, but maybe possible. Boy Rabba, the same shiloh once again. Hikdishu mayu sheyilka lov mishum balmum. Given the pasuk of balmum dami, adilma ein balmum ela bebehema. And for the Gemara take. Beautiful Gemara. Beautiful, beautiful Gemara.